The game had worked well. This game had worked well for them until one night, two men posing as friends duped Terry into leaving Diana unprotected on the streets. They quickly took from Diana what she had pretended to offer so many times. Soon thereafter, Diana got sick and returned home. Her parents filed a peace bond to keep Terry away, and the pair drifted apart. A few months later, Terry left home for good. It was time for him to take care of unfinished business in the big city's ghetto. 3 knife-point robberies at 7-Eleven convenience stores put $400 in his pocket, and Farmer began prowling the ghetto's nightclubs in search of Diana's attackers. He bought a .25 caliber automatic handgun for $100 off a street dealer and patiently waited for his prey at a club where he knew he would find them. He smiled for the first time in weeks when one of his targets entered the club, duded up and acting like he was a cock of the wall. That asshole's attitude was going to change real soon, Terry thought. The mark made the job easy. He left the bar with a young girl in tow. She presented a problem, but he dealt with that on the fly. The pair walked through a dimly lit parking lot, then out of sight around the corner of a building. Terry picked up his pace to stay within striking distance. As he turned the corner, he almost ran into the pair next to a garbage dumpster, where the girl was already giving the mark a blowjob. Terry snuck up behind her and tapped her on the shoulder. The girl jumped back in fright and accosted Terry with, "Hey fucker," while the John looked up to see what had interrupted his date. Terry drew the pistol from his back pocket and instinctively thrust the muzzle into his quarry's very surprised face. "Hey, I don't want no part of this," the startled girl gasped. "Get the fuck out of here, whore," Farmer growled, and the girl bolted away. "Move, asshole," he ordered the mark, dragging him down the alley by his arm, gun in face. "Hey man, what's up? I ain't done nothing to you," the mark protested, frantically tucking his shrinking, wet penis inside his pants. Terry remained quiet, moving his man along until he slammed him into a warehouse wall. "Where's your little shithead road dog? You know, the maggot fuck with the zit face." Terry held the gun to the mark's head. He could smell his fear. He was intoxicated by the sights, sounds, and odors, and his rage boiled. He didn't wait for a reply. Instead, he pistol whipped his face, splitting his cheek. The mark gasped and pleaded, "Who are you, man? I ain't done no wrong. Look at me, shithead. Remember me now?" By the look on his face, Terry knew he did. He recoiled just like all the others. His one dead eye gave him the evil, half-crazed look of the devil's own. Terry knew gunfire would attract attention, so he beat and kicked his victim into unconsciousness. He considered finishing the job by cutting the slumped man's throat, but his anger had subsided and he still had another score to settle. He stomped and kicked the mark's head as hard as he could and left the unconscious man near death's door. 2 hours later, the second mark recognized Terry first and fled in panic to a public restroom in the dark city park, directly across the street from where the other man had taken Diana. He ran to the last toilet stall where he stood trembling and waiting. Terry quickly found him and kicked the stall door until it opened. The mark sprang out screaming, "You're dead, man," and impaled himself on Terry's upraised knife. Both men crashed against the wall opposite the stall, and Terry saw a look of astonishment and heard a grunt of surprise. Then a gush of air rushed from his victim's gut as he drove the knife to the hilt. His body slumped onto Terry's, and he twisted free from his victim and let him collapse to the floor, blood flowing from his wound. Clutching his innards, he screamed and rolled. But Terry was excited by the smell of blood. He kicked the mark's head so violently he slipped on the muck and fell to the floor. Jumping up, he began kicking the man again, first in the head, then in the guts. Blood shot onto the walls, stalls, and the floor, spraying Terry with a stream of gore. He stomped until the man laid still. Finally satisfied, he wiped the knife on the wet grass and fled to his hotel room, his clothing drenched in blood and sweat. Luckily, he got to his room unseen. He tore off his clothes and stood in the shower for an hour to let the warm water erase all traces of the attack. He watched the trails of blood flow down the drain, and with it, the anger. He placed all his bloody clothing into a bag, redressed, and walked several city blocks before disposing of the evidence. Sleep eluded him that night as he relived the fights, saw the marks' faces, heard their cries, and smelled their fear. Still, he did not feel he had done wrong. The next morning, Terry left the city and began a 2-year road exodus and crime spree. Now he had reached his own road's dead end. During the first long day of the driving down the narrow dirt tracks off Highway 180, Farmer did not give up the location of the bodies. But on one side, Paulson sensed Farmer had acted differently. On the way back to town, Paulson let Farmer know he was suspicious. "It's that road we just left where we went back twice, isn't it?" Paulson confronted Farmer. "You're right," Farmer admitted, realizing Paulson was onto him again. The next day, Farmer took Paulson directly to the bodies, hidden amongst a clump of trees, their skulls crushed with rocks. Paulson had called the families during every step of the investigation. When Paulson found Hartley, when he found Farmer, when Farmer confessed. Now he called them to tell them that the fate of their children was finally known. He didn't want a strange policeman to walk to their doors with the grim news. In Farmer's confession, the impetus to rape Kathleen and murder them both had been Hartley's alone. Paulson believed that to a point. When Hartley was arrested, he had worn around his neck a talisman of his crime, an unusual piece of Navajo jewelry made of silver, turquoise, and bear claws. Tilford's father recognized it immediately from Hartley's mugshot. Tilford Oso's distinctive bear claw necklace hung beneath his murderer's mocking face. It sickened his father's heart to see evil incarnate wearing Tilford's talisman. Tilford's family name means bear in Spanish. The bear symbolizes power and wisdom to the Navajos. His wise and powerful son had been maliciously slain as if he were a wild animal, and his necklace had been kept as a trophy. Such feelings never would be shared out loud by Tilford's family. The Navajos don't speak of the dead. Tilford's extended family showed up, though Paulson had asked only the father to come to the sheriff's office to identify the necklace Hartley wore. The Oso family sat in silence, showing no emotion, as only Paulson and the old man quietly spoke. Navajos remember their jewelry, a symbol of their wealth. They design, fashion, and wear it every day. The distinctive piece around Hartley's neck was no exception. The old man had made the bear claw necklace himself and had given it to Tilford. That Hartley had worn it was proof to the Oso family that Paulson had found the beast who murdered their Tilford. As the family filed out the door, Tilford's mother asked Paulson, "Do you want to know why I came here?" Paulson nodded yes. "I wanted to see the one who caught the bad man," she quietly replied. After Farmer's sentencing, Paulson again talked with the Tilford's family in his office. The Navajo family broke down crying. He knew any display of emotion to someone outside the family was highly unusual for any Navajo, and he felt accepted as someone special to the Oso family. Kathleen's mother sent Paulson a thank you card several months after Farmer's sentencing. 23 years later, Paulson and Miss Herman still exchange Christmas greetings. To this day, Paulson remembers his appreciation and acceptance by the Oso and Herman families as the finest compliments paid him during his law enforcement career. No jury's verdict of guilty could ever mean as much or so reward his efforts. Nor could an execution of Hartley have more satisfied Paulson, but he got that as well, in a form perhaps more than just a painless and quick execution by the state. On the day of his extradition to Arizona to face first-degree murder charges for the death of Kathleen and Tilford, Hartley committed suicide by swallowing a prison-made poison concoction of ground glass, metal shards, and ink that produced a death more hideous, protracted, and painful than any legal execution. Reading a news account of the suicide, Farmer felt Hartley had acted out of weakness, taking a coward's way out. He kept the newspaper clipping for years among his personal mementos. Farmer arrived May 4, 1977 at Arizona State Prison in Florence to serve concurrent life sentences for the Arizona and Texas murders. Not yet 20 years old and facing life in prison, how much worse could life get?